Bro, it is hot. Like, it is hot. We got some sweaty balls going on. So it's hot out. It's summer. The fish like it, but they don't like it. It's one of those funny games where it's a great time to fish, great time to catch fish, but you really have to start adapting your, I guess, your presentations to kind of fit the mood of the fish. Just imagine if you were sitting outside all day, dude, 90 degrees, 95 degrees, sweating, freaking dying, dude, and you're just like, bro, I want a sandwich, but I really don't want to go get it. And that's the mood fish are in, you know? It's almost in the dog days of summer, and there's this transition. It's basically from that initial kind of offshore deep bite, and we actually talked about it last month. You know, those deep fish, when they just get out, they're just kind of grouping up, they're reactive. You got to throw those fast crankbaits, the spoon, the hair jig. You really have to get those fish to react. Well, that transitions, and it transitions because of the heat and the pressure. And I see it on Gunnersville every year. About July, August, all of a sudden these fish that wanted, like, you literally could not fish a bait fast enough to catch them. They go from that 100 miles an hour attitude to, man, I'm not feeling it, guys. I'm not feeling it. So we have to adapt the way we catch them, right? And it's super easy because it's one of my favorite times of year in the sense of, I come from Florida, we do a lot of soft plastics fishing, and it fits right into my sort of juice and my strength because it's about fishing soft plastics around cover, around structure, and sort of adapting the plastic that you're throwing to fit the mood of the bass. And that's exactly what we're gonna talk about in this video, so smash that like and subscribe button. Let's talk the nuances of worm fishing. So there's a lot of different ways to fish a worm. A drop shot, a Nico rig, a shaky head. Hell, you can even put a worm on the back of a jig. We do it on the ledges actually up here. You take a football jig and without a skirt, and you put a worm on the back of it, rig it Texas rig, and drag it along because you get that rolling over the shell. There's a lot of different ways to do it. In this video, we're gonna focus on the most traditional, and it's not bad traditional. A lot of times it has a connotation when you say traditional, it's kind of like overplayed and like old school. And the reality is it's a pillar of bass fishing, and it catches fish day in and day out. And even though there's a traditional way to fish the Tejas rig just like this, there's a lot of weird things you can do with it, and it relates to two things: your retrieve, as well as the way you sort of like put the plastic on and you fish that plastic and really take advantage of everything that plastic has to offer. So with that being said, let's start out with basic setup. My traditional worm setup, my basic Texas rig setup, and really it works for anything from like a 3/16 when we're fishing shallow in spring all the way up to like a ½ ounce. We're dragging super deep on some of these deep ledges, and that's a 7-foot medium heavy. A traditional rig deserves a traditional rod, right? I have a 721 Shimano SLX. Not the fastest reel that you can use, but a faster reel. You don't want a super slow reel because a lot of times you're gonna be reeling up slack because these fish bite it and they swim off to the side. They do something like that. You're picking up slack line, and you need enough speed in the reel in order to pick up that line to set the hook. The other thing too is, for the most part, you're gonna be doing this with fluorocarbon. There's some exceptions when it comes to heavy cover fishing down in Florida, maybe around trees in Texas, but you don't need a super like stout $400 reel. A little $100 reel like this will cover you, because really I throw it on like 15 to 18 pound fluorocarbon, usually never lower, usually never higher than that. The 7-foot medium heavy is perfect too because it allows me enough length to make long casts, but at the same time it's not like a super long rod where if I get around docks or around cover, I can't make accurate, very pointed casts. The other thing that we talked about initially in the video is the versatility of the Texas rig. I will literally take this setup and throw it out on that point over there and drag it, and then I will go around the point. You see those docks back there? I will literally get up next to those docks and I'll be pitching the exact same rig. So you can do a million different things with one setup as long as you have the correct setup initially. It's super versatile, and that's what's beautiful. It knocks like 3 or 4 rods off your deck. You can just have one rod and do a bunch of things with it. One of the things that I like to do is the grass kind of comes up in summer no matter where you live, whether you're up north, down south, and that grass comes up. It doesn't come up to the same height in every place, and it's very hard to fish hard baits around it, crankbaits, things along those lines, because it does get so thick. one of the baits, and it's a Florida transplant that just works everywhere, that I love to throw is this guy. And this is what you call a swimming worm. This is a gambler burner worm. This is the 6-inch version. And basically what defines it is this little tail right here. Instead of having like a long ribbon tail, which is a type of worm we're going to talk about, it has this little kind of horseshoe tail, and it's perfect for sort of swimming it. It's almost like an extended elongated grub, like old school grub fishing. And what you're going to do with it is take like a 3/16 maybe tungsten. It all depends on how deep you're fishing. For me on Guntersville, it's usually 3 to 8 feet or so is kind of the sweet spot. If you're deeper, you need to go a little heavier. If you're shallower, you need to go a little bit lighter. But we take that 3/16 on a peg and Texas rig this guy, and what we'll do is just fish these flats, fish points, anywhere where there's grass or some kind of cover, and we're just casting it as far as we can, and then we're just kind of slow reeling it. You're either pointing the rod at the bait if you're trying to keep that bait running a little bit lower. If you're trying to keep it above the grass just a hair, you put that rod at just a slight 45 and you're just slow reeling it. The whole key is finding sort of the pace or sort of the rhythm that those fish are looking for, the speed of the retrieve. And once you find that, dude, the bite is awesome. It's just like a traditional worm bite. You're just reeling along and you'll feel that tick, dude. And you just reel down, make sure they got it, and set the hook on it. So swimming worm, absolutely killer, especially if those fish are willing to bite a moving bait. Now, sometimes, you know, the dead of summer, the dead of the day, the heat, the pressure, they're not going to chase. So when they're not going to chase, there's 2 options. I'm going to show you the most traditional because we're not going to focus on it very much, and you probably already know about it because you probably bass fish a little bit if you're watching this video, and that is the 10-inch ribbon tail. This is plum. Plum is a classic color on the TVA, on the Guntersville, Pickwick. This is a 10-inch worm too, and I know some of you guys from up north are saying, man, that's a long ribbon tail. I'd rather throw a 7-inch or a 6-inch or something like that. Let me tell you, I'm actually originally from Wisconsin. They eat a 10-inch ribbon tail. One of the tricks with late summer fishing is fish want a little more size. Now, whether that size comes from length or sort of a fatter, girthier bait, that's what you have to figure out. But a 10-inch ribbon tail is awesome because what's cool is you get a swimming action even though you're sort of dragging it along the bottom. That tail, that ribbon tail, has an undulating sort of, I don't know, it's just this very unique action. It's one of the oldest baits in the book, aside from the old school like cream straight tail worms and things like that. But it just day in and day out catches fish this time of year, and it's a standard. Now, more fun stuff. I like the more fun stuff because I like playing around with things. One thing that I did last year, and it is again a Florida transplant, is I got a little bit stick baity with it. My philosophy is, as we get into this late summer, these fish get cranky, dude. They get neutral, they get non-reactive, it's almost like sort of an inverted winter. Like less is more. They don't want a bunch of water displacement. They want a bigger bait, but they don't want it doing a whole bunch. And that's when I bust out this guy right here. So this is my sort of mid to late summer like giant killer, and I can do a million things with it, and the biggest key is it's sort of a do nothing bait, and yet at the same time it's a stocky presentation, so I can draw big bites out of it. Basically, this is a 5-inch Gambler Ace, a stick bait, you know, your classic Senko style stick bait. I have a 5/8 ounce tungsten with a bullet weight, and then just your classic O'Shaughnessy hook right there, offset shank hook. This is actually, I think, a 4-aught on it. And what I'm going to do with this, the big key is the grass grows up, right? Late summer, the grass is freaking peaked out. There's chunks of it everywhere. What we run into a lot here in Guntersville, on Pickwick, is the grass will grow up in like chunks around shell bars. So oftentimes you're fishing these hard spots, but there's a lot of like thick cover around. And what's really nice with this stick bait is because it is such a straight bait, it doesn't have that dangly ribbon tail on that, it comes through that kind of cover. So we have a lot of eelgrass, a lot of hydrilla, and when I'm throwing this, I can literally throw it into some of this ultra thick cover and just drag it through. Maybe I have to pop it every once in a while, but that actually creates a reaction, which we're going to talk about in a second. But the bait will run clean through this, so I can fish stuff that guys are having a lot of trouble accessing with your hard baits, your reaction baits, even your chatter baits. You know, it's too thick for that kind of stuff. And what's really cool is, you know how we fish like a trap in early spring, in that we rip it off the grass, get that reaction? Well, you can do the same thing with this bait, because you're not fouling it when you throw it into that strandy grass, and you can kind of get it hung up and just give it a pop, and that bait will dart out and then kind of quiver straight back to the bottom with that sort of subtle waving kind of shimmy action. And I get a ton of bites on it. The other thing that's really cool is I run a tungsten weight. This is a 5/8 ounce. It really transmits the bottom well for me. So if I'm going through some of those grass beds that are kind of sparse, I can tell what part of the area has a hard bottom. Where's the shell at? Where's the rock at? Because the grass kind of covers up that stuff as we get into late summer. So it gives you a lot of bottom transmission and a lot of bottom communication. So you can identify which kind of area is sort of that juicy hard spot, because that's where you're going to find the fish. There's nothing wrong with being OG. I kind of consider myself a little bit OG. I've been around shooting videos on YouTube since before even YouTube was owned by Google, like back in like 2010. Like, I'm one of the original kind of fishing content creators on YouTube, and I'm proud of that. And I still kind of create a bunch of content, have a good time with it. The worm is the exact same concept. You know, a soft plastic worm, a Texas rig worm, is a classic, dude. It's a legacy bait, but at the same time, it's not about what it is, it's about what you do with it. Swimming that worm, changing up your plastic presentation to a straight tail, like with less sort of water displacement, tweaking your presentation to make it a little bit different. We always use the analogy, you know, you don't need to reinvent the wheel, you just got to put spokes on it. You got to put, you know, rubber on the tire, put treads on it. You know, those little plays, taking a concept that works, that's a great bass catcher, and just tweaking a little bit so it's a presentation that fits best into where you're fishing and how you're fishing. That's my philosophy, and it's worked thus far, so I'm going to keep doing it. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Go strap on a worm on your Texas rig and slang, dude, because I know you're going to catch them. If you guys enjoyed this, hit that like and subscribe button, and go check out my videos. I got a bunch of Texas rig worm videos going up. Hit that at Mikey Balzz Fishing up on YouTube. We'll see you guys later. I'm going to go do some fishing.